Hello everyone. Good morning to all. Today we are going to discuss regarding environmental impact assessment and management third lecture regarding classification of environmental parameters, stages involved in environmental impact assessment and management, that is nothing but EIAM, which is a course dealing in 4-1 semester for civil engineering students. So let us get into the topic. So today our topic is classification of environmental parameters. So let us discuss regarding the environmental parameters, how they are interlinked with each other and what cycle will they follow or will they appear. So most EIA guidelines follow the relatively simple methodology in which environmental resources or values are classified into four general categories. So how these EIA guidelines prescribed in order to classify the environmental parameters into four general categories. They are: first one is natural physical resources, second one natural ecological resources, third one human and economic development resources, and the last one is quality of life values, including aesthetic and cultural values, which are difficult to assess in conventional terms. So these are the four environmental parameters classified by the following of guidelines of EIA, which are drafted. So let us get into the natural resources. These are the resources that exist without actions of mankind. That means without any involvement of any mankind, these resources are naturally available by the environmental parameters that will occur in the on earth. This includes all valued characteristics such as magnetic, gravitational, electrical properties and forces. On earth, it includes sunlight, atmosphere, water, land, includes all minerals, along with all vegetation, crops, and animal life that naturally subsists upon or within the heretofore identified the characteristics and substances. So, what is meant by natural resources? Natural resources are available or exist without any involvement of the mankind. These natural resources includes all valued characteristics such as magnetic, gravitational, electrical properties and forces also. That means if we discuss regarding sunlight, it consists of several electrical properties as well as chemical properties, which is a combination of oxygen, which is a combination of various chemicals to form a sunlight, which is coming from a star, that is sun. And atmosphere, the atmosphere means the layer above the earth's surface consists of various gases which are formed naturally. And water, it is a hydrological cycle involved in order to get the water from the onto the earth. And land, which is a natural one formation, that is including of all the minerals along with vegetation, crops and animal life that naturally subsists. So these are the natural resources. If we discuss regarding the ecological resources, a resource is a substance or object in the environment required by an organism for natural growth, maintenance and reproduction. Resources can be consumed by one organism and as a result become unavailable to another organism. For plants, key resources are light, nutrients, water, and place to grow. For animals, key resources are food, water, and territory. The best example for these ecological resources are nothing but the resources which are required for mankind or plant life, flora and fauna kingdoms in order to survive. Those resources are known as ecological resource. That means an organism for its growth or maintenance or reproduction, it requires some food which is consuming, and this food depends or these organisms depends on the natural resources in order to form a cycle which is known as ecological cycle, which is maintaining balance in the society. that is ecological resources, the resources which depends upon natural resources for the survival in the society to form a ecological balance in the environment. Those resources are known as ecological resources. And what about the third one? Already we discussed, that is human economic development resources. Human economic development resources are also nothing but food, water, and territory, shelter, land. These natural resources are absolutely should require for an animal or any plant life in order to survive. If these flora and fauna kingdom exist, then only there will be ecological balance in the environment. So those above two resources will be inclusion of human and economic development resources. And the last one is quality of life values. This is purely depending upon the lifestyle of a human being. The quality of life depends upon various factors that we will follow: bodily integrity, feeling safe, feeling self worth, having structure, sense of belonging, social participation, meaningful daily activities, inner contentment. So, if we discuss each and every aspect of these quality life values, which will enable a humankind to lead a very quality life by safeguarding the environmental resources around us. In order to get all these all values should follow every individual in the society. First one is bodily integrated or integrity, means any person should not feel selfish that it is required for him. If he gets it, he should not satisfy. He should think of the society, that whether it is available to other people or not. It should be a integral feeling. Next, feeling safe. Every individual should feel very safe by living in this society. Such circumstances should be created by us. Next, feeling self-worth. Our life is very worthful, that we should feel, and we should be very responsible in order to safeguard all the resources that are using by us. And fourth one, having structure. And fifth one, sense of belonging. We should we should be we should feel as it is belonging to us, that either environment, any resources, then only we can give these resources to the next generation. If we unusually waste those resources, those will not be uh, conserved, then it will affect our future generations. So we should be very careful and feeling very belongingness. Next, social participation. That means socially we should be very aware of all the activities which are going on in the society and should be very active. Meaningful daily activities. We should be very meaningful in doing any activity which should lead to the uh, lead to the usefulness of society. Next, inner contentment. So these are four natural resources or environmental parameters classified by environmental impact assessment based on their guidelines. Next topic is stages in EIA. How the Environmental Impact Assessment Board will configure or give approval to a particular proposal that is coming across with respect to the environmental parameters that they are following. This is the flow chart how they will follow from step to step in order to give approval to any proposal that come across to their board. So first one is screening, but that is project screening. If anyone want to construct any industry, they would prepare a project that should be enabled by the EIA after screening only. Next is scoping, how far it is useful for the society, what are the impacts and issues that will develop after the implement of that industry. Next, a description of the project development action. Next, a description of the environmental baseline. These so which will lead to next prediction of impacts, or if at all this industry is laid, what are the impacts that would come across in the future. Next, evaluation and assessment of significance of impacts. We should evaluate the impact of those any impacts which will come across in the future and its significance. Identification of mitigating measures. and what are the measures that we should take in order to reduce those impacts. Next, presentation of findings in an EIS. EIS means environmental impact statements. For any project, there will be certain statements which will be delivered by the EIA after examining their report. Next, a review of the EIS. Next, decision making. Next, post decision monitoring, auditing, and predictions of mitigating measures. These all comes under the public consultation. The above three, which comes under the public consultation, means for any project which is going to take place in the society or at a particular place, the surrounding people or surrounding area where the neighbors are living there, the decisions of those people or opinions from them should be recorded, and those will be taken into consideration while screening, scoping, description of the project and their impacts, and evaluation assessment and mitigation measures. And next, environmental impact statements should be drafted by taking all the decisions from the public consultation only. EIA could not directly take any decision. Next, after taking all these decisions, the review of the above statements will be taking place. Next, decision making will be taking place by the EIA. Next, post after decision monitoring, auditing, and predictions of the mitigating measures will be taking place. So let us stick into the first stage, that is screening. Screening is the first key decision of the EIA process. So EIA process, in which the first process they will take place is, or first stage that will take place is screening. Screening is the process used to determine whether a proposed property or activity requires an EIA, and if so, what level of environmental review is necessary. That means, in previous class we discussed regarding environmental, the initial environmental examination, that is a preliminary survey which will taking place for each and every project. If for large scale projects, initial environmental examination is not only enough. The report which is taken from the IEE should be taken to the EIA also. So the project, based on the type of project, the EIA process will be taking place, and the first stage of EIA is screening, in which it will decide whether the project requires EIA or not, and if so, what level of environmental review is necessary, and based on the type of the project that come across. And the purpose of screening is to determine whether a proposal requires an EIA or not. That is one thing. And some type of screening procedure is necessary because of the large number of projects and activities that are potentially subject to EIA. In screening project, initially they first do one thing, that is, after they would take the report from the IEA, that is initial examination, environmental examination from them, that report will be analyzed. That is the stage where screening takes place, and they will decide whether. So in screening, after taking the report from the IEE, whether the screening in which the EIA has to be taken place for that project or not will be decided. That is the main motto of doing the first stage, where screening in which any project requires EIA analysis or not, that will be decided. And what about the second one? That is scoping. So what is meant by scoping? Scoping is a critical early step in the preparation of EIA. This is a critical step, and it is the first step in which the EIA preparation taken place. The scoping process identifies the issues that are likely to be of most importance during the EIA and eliminates those that are of little concern. That means in this stage they will separate the likely to be the higher issues and little concern issues into two zones, and they will neglect the little concerns, and they will consider the high issues that are coming across in that analysis, and they will taken into consideration those higher issues to form a report. Typically this process concludes with the establishment of terms of reference for the preparation of a EIA. So in this EIA, in this step of scoping process, they will separate the higher issues and little concern issues, and they will make a report by following the higher issues into consideration. A quality scoping study reduces the risk of including inappropriate components or excluding components which should be addressed in the environmental assessment. By taking these higher issues which are very appropriate in order to analyze in the EIA process, by excluding the inappropriate, lower, little concern components, so that the risk of the analysis can be reduced to a certain level which are addressed. That is regarding scoping. And after scoping, the consideration of alternatives is the next stage, where if at all any problem occurs during the during the selection of the location for a particular project, and what are the processes that are going to take place in the project, layouts and operation conditions. If any problem occurs during these processes, or whenever they're going to execute these processes step by step, if any problems occur, they would choose for the alternatives that will be analyzed in the EIA stage only. This seeks to ensure that the proponent has considered other feasible approaches. Other feasible means other alternative approaches, including alternative project locations, scales, processes, layouts, and operating conditions, so that they can reduce the problems of unfeasible conditions which are arising. Next one is description of the project or development action. In this stage, seeks to clarify the purpose and rationale of the project and understand its various characteristics, including the stages of development, location, processes. Purely, this stage will decide the clarity of the purpose of project, as well as rationale of the project and its characteristics, including the stages of development, location, and processes. That means in this stage or description of this project implies that how far this purpose or clarifies the purpose of this project to be understood in various stages, like characteristics, including the stages of development, location, and processes, so that they can come to a conclusion of how much important by executing or implementing this project. Next one, description of the environmental baseline. And with respect to the environmental parameters, a baseline will be created, or a baseline will be created by the EIA by considering the environmental factors which will occur due to this implement of the project. This includes the establishment of both the present and future state of the environment in the absence of the project, as well as in the presence of the project, taking into consideration the changes resulting from natural events and from other human activities. So in this case, they will separate the events which are going to take place before the project executement and after the project executement, so that they will analyze how far this project will um, influence the society or environment in good manner or badly manner, how far it will affect the environment. So that will be decided in the description of the environmental baseline. Next stage is identification of key impacts. So this brings together the previous steps with a view to ensuring that all potentially significant environmental impacts are identified and taken into account in the process. So key impacts. Key impacts means important impacts which will affect the society in a large extent. So those impacts will be identified in this stage. So this brings together the previous steps. So till now we discussed regarding screening, scoping, description of the project, next description of the environmental baseline, next description of the various stages that we included in the alternatives. So after getting a report from above four stages, they will likely to identify the impacts from the above stages with a view to ensure that all potentially significant environmental impacts are identified and taken into account in the process. So after identifying these key impacts, the prediction of the impacts. These impacts means after considering the key impacts which will affect the society in the future, those impacts will be predicted. How far they will affect, what is the minimalization that can take in place with respect to these impacts will be decided in the prediction of impacts. This step aims to identify the likely magnitude of the change. That's what I said. That is the impact which will have the magnitude to change the society in the environmental baseline when the project is implemented in comparison with the situation when the project is not carried out. They would compare the initial stages of the project or before the project, the environmental factors, as well as after the consideration of the project, the environmental factors, and they will decide. After prediction of these impacts, they should decided the magnitude of the impact of those projects, so that as an alternative we should make some mitigation measures also. Mitigation means reduction measures. This involves the introduction of measures to avoid, reduce, remedy, or compensate for any significant adverse impacts. The impacts which are predicted in the above stage has to be reduced by taking certain mitigation measures that should be taking place in this mitigation process. Next, public consultation and participation. As I already said that the above all the stages could take place with the active participation of the all the neighbors or the public which are surrounded by the project where it is to be implemented. So their decisions, their quality, their comprehensiveness, the effectiveness of the EIA, as well as to ensure that the public views are adequately taken into consideration in the decision making process. That should give a quality of EIA. Next one is after taking all these reviews, after taking all the above statements, above processes, above stages, they would prepare a environmental impact statement presentation. That is the final presentation created by the Environmental Impact Assessment Board members by taking all the stages initially in the above manner, so that they prepare a final statements of the project key impacts. This is a vital step in the process. If done badly, so much good work in the EIA may be negated. So this is the important step where the presentation of EIS is much important to take place. And from here, this report will be finalized, and this report will be a key report for a project to be implemented or not will be decided. So what is the next one? As this report is prepared, the review of this report will be taking place by a systematic appraisal of the quality of EAS as a contribution to the decision making process. Next one is after reviewing of this project, the decision making will be taking place after review of various experienced people. At this stage, decisions are made by the relevant authority of the EAS together with other material considerations so as to whether to accept, defer, or reject the project. Here, the decision will be taking place by the board of members with respect to the EAS report, and they will decide whether this project has to be taken or reject. That will be decided. After the decision making, if it is accepted, then we should go for the outcomes that are associated with the development impacts. So after the allow of the project, they should discuss or monitor the project with respect to the impacts that are coming across in the future by taking all those into consideration. After the decision is to proceed with the project, it can contribute to effective project management. After all these stages taken place, the last stage is auditing, where this would conclude with the monitoring and involves comparing actual outcomes with predicted outcomes and can be used to assess the quality of predictions and the effectiveness of mitigation. It provides a vital step in EIA learning process. That means auditing is a continuous process from beginning of initial implementation of the industry to the far extent how far it will work. Meanwhile, what are the impacts that are come across in the society and what are the outcomes that across come during the execution, and what they predicted before execution of that project. They will compare all these and they would prepare a audit report on it, and they would finally justify whether our report is quality or not with respect to the outcome that come across during the execution of the project. That is the final stage. Thank you.